That was cool.
Absolutely.
Talk about fast media. We're cramming it all in.
That's right.
In the hour.
And by the way, music can inspire, can turn people, can change people's lives. So none of the writing that I've done is a put down on media.
Oh,
Some
no,
media,
no, I know. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. What he's doing probably has made a lot of people very happy.
But I think my point to him, and I didn't make it clear, was that with all the fans, they want the oversaturation, especially KISS fans.
Right. And that's where the danger occurs. When you wake up singing nothing but the lyrics of your favorite band, there's nothing else in your head.
You know, it's a double-edged sword because the record labels, which really don't exist anymore, created the fan, which is fanatic. And they wanted people obsessed, but then it was like, if someone goes and tapes a concert, well, we don't want you that obsessed.
Right.
Well, you created this. You want us to have more.
Right.
But on your terms.
And at the extreme, it leads to stalking, it leads to drug overdoses, it leads to Altamont. But at the other extreme, it leads to ecstasy, both kinds. Yeah.
Altamont. Well, you know, Marty Ballin is he and the Jefferson Airplane. Marty's here tomorrow night. He's a dear friend. I'm the guy who actually brought him into Boston.
Wow, well done.
The Esplanade. Yeah, we go back about 24 years. He's the only artist, he and the Jefferson Airplane, to play at Woodstock, Altamont, and Monterey, the 3 big festivals.
Not a surprise.
All movies, but it's a Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. And you know the Beatles, when they did Let It Be and they're on the rooftop?
Yes, rooftop concert.
Jean-Luc Godard had filmed The Airplane. And the Beatles loved it so much, they copied it.
I see, I never knew that.
Isn't that incredible? So Jean-Luc Godard had put them on a rooftop first.
Yeah, Godard had sympathy for the devil with the Stones, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I forgot that. But that's not, I think history is one thing, and you're not talking about history, you're talking about media oversaturation.
Yeah, and you were making a point about the Amish, so let's go back to that before the phone call came in. We have a lot of no media zones in our society that we don't really understand. We also have low media zones and cultures, people who live with just one newspaper, just one TV station and so forth. And then we have fully media saturated zones like our own culture. And the question is not who's right, but what do you learn from each and what do you lose from each? So for example, I'd go into an Amish home, and I'm not promoting the Amish, but I would hear people singing together, or I might hear them playing games and laughing together, or I might feel them worshiping together, or doing something that kind of brings them closer together. If I go into a typical suburban home, almost anywhere else in this country, what I hear is, you know, rock coming out of one room, maybe MTV. Another room, the door is closed because somebody's watching porn and they don't want anybody to know. Another room is sports fixation, and then maybe there are 2 people screaming at each other. So we become very fragmented by virtue of the demographics of media, creating little mini cultures, but the so-called nuclear family doesn't have a nucleus anymore. Everyone's in a different kind of culture, and at this point, as of 2 years ago, we have more machine marriages than human marriages. By that I mean if a Martian landed 2 years ago or beyond, he would have seen more people talking to their media, more people with the machine than with another human being.
I thought you meant them finding mates on Match.com as opposed to in everyday life.
Well, that's a phenomenon too. By the way, a man in Japan married his video game recently. It was a bit of a PR stunt, but it's kind of a symbol of what society's come to.
When they make robots that can mate with people, I think that there's going to be a lot more disconnect, because I think people want a robot. I think they want to control their mate. And not everyone, of course, but I think that there's a lot of people that feel they can't get the date of their dreams, so they'll just create it and have it manufactured, and it'll be a Twilight Zone episode.
Many psychologists are telling us we already have that challenge where somebody will come in and say, you know, my mate can get it electronically in ways that I can't produce. I may have a headache, I get older, I have graying hair, but his mate, his cyber mate, keeps getting younger, will provide whatever services every night that he wants visually and so forth and so on, and it's becoming more realistic every year. So that kind of superficial mate, 900 numbers, all of that is magnifying in our society, and so we have more and more people coming out of a psychiatrist's office, and the psychiatrist is saying, wait a minute, what happened to real human relationships?
You know, I like looking people in the eye. And you notice how people are afraid?
Yeah.
but they're not afraid of this, and they love, and they're in the car, and they're everywhere, and now I saw a fellow on a bike talking, and I'm saying, that just looks so silly. And he's talking to his phone. But he's on a bike, and he's going by, and it's like, it's so odd, and it's like, oh, he's got a Bluetooth.
There are a lot of psychological analyses of why we do that. One is that we want not to seem alone. And so often a person will have it to their ear even though they're not talking to it. Another is that we may in fact be alone and we're reaching out for whatever we hope messages are there. We're trying to connect with people. Another one is that we want to extend our convenience. And so instead of having to go home to connect with someone, we can connect with them almost anywhere. So they're practical reasons, but they're also deeply felt psychotic reasons sometimes for why we use media in ways that we don't fully understand.
Psychotic?
Yeah, I think so. Where we want to appear to be someone other than ourselves, and it becomes an obsession. And the media plays into that. You've got to have a larger and larger screen. You've got to have the latest model of whatever it is you're listening to. And you've got to make sure everybody knows that you're constantly on Facebook. And so instead of any of these having a genuine reason that really fulfills us, a lot of it becomes very superficial.
I just got on Facebook to tell people to tune in to hear you.
Not a problem.
But, you know, that's what I like Facebook. I like being in touch with Donna on it, you know. Donna Halpa, who will be on here next week.
Yes, give her my best.
I intend to. I can read your book on TV. Exodus, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness. But the point is, people can see that I'm reading it, but no one's kind of monitoring me. If I go and look for phrases from this on Google, Google now knows what I've been reading. And so now the media is actually watching me instead of me watching the media. I don't like that.
It's a Hall of Mirrors effect. A lot of people say privacy ended in 1984, literally, not just in the book. But you know, it's always a double edge. The media brings us all the world's cultures. It brings us almost any kind of recipe that you would want of your favorite food. It brings us religions and philosophies that we probably didn't know much about. It brings us knowledge of all kinds. So the media is a kind of encyclopedia of experience that we didn't have prior to that. So once again, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times, it's the best of worlds, it's the worst of worlds.
I read somewhere the CIA and the FBI have so much information pouring in, they can't even go through it all.
Yes, and I don't know if I talked about information anxiety here, Richard Wurham's phenomenon, but he coined the phrase information anxiety for people who are burned out, who are anxious, who are tired. They cannot keep up with all the faxes, emails, tweets, and so forth that they get, and they can't keep up with all the upgrades, accelerating changes, volume of new devices, 1,000-channel universe. And it's very hard unless you have your priorities straight to know what you should be watching, what you should be reading, what you should be seeing, when you should obsolesce your last contraption and buy the latest one, or whether you should hold on to it another year or two. All of those pressures on people create a state in which we have a lot more people saying to doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, you know, I'm overstimulated. I really need a change of pace. So believe it or not, it was a medical person who told me I should publish that book. I'd used it in classrooms for a long time. He said, I'm going to prescribe a media fast to my patients, because it's not just their physical problems that they're having, but they're also having mental overstimulated experiences. They're stressed out.
And I like the play on words, because it's a fast media. People should go on a media fast.
Yes, or a diet if a fast is too extreme for them.
But for people who write, which I do, and who create television, and even on whatever level I'm on, it's still what I do. And to fast from it is, you know, I have to get my reviews in. I had to get my Deep Purple review out there, you know?
Absolutely, and a lot of people who have taken a media fast with me or with others who are media producers or directors come back recharged and ready to make better media. So this is not about getting away from the media. This is about being a creator rather than a consumer. You can use the media in 101 creative ways. In fact, I teach media, so I'd be quite a hypocrite if I said you've got to fast all the time. And we all love different aspects of the media. Sometimes it's changed our life. Sometimes a film will make you think, a book will make you think in a way you've never done before. So it can be extremely creative. But the question is, what do you want on your tombstone? Watched 1,000 episodes of Survivor, or made a difference?
Not Survivor.
Or made a difference. And a lot of people have made a difference with the media, but in many other creative ways as well.
You're the professor of visual and media arts at Emerson. I'm the professor of visual radio.
Hey, great.
Here on public access television.
That's a paradox, DOCS.
Other publications from Gator Press. So Dr. Michael Gator has his own books.
He does, and he's actually visiting me this weekend.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, he's quite a healing professional, and he wrote the preface to this, and he showed the kind of impact that the numbers have on children and families these days, because we absorb so much electricity that he really wants his patients to get out there and have a different experience nature again, experience life again, relationships again, creativity again. And so that's why he has prescribed this to a number of people.
You know, you say we use so much electricity. Today was the second biggest use of electricity in our history.
In Boston, that's
yes.
right. Yeah, because it was over 100 in some places, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't the air conditioners. They were going into their computers trying to get cool. You know. Before you came to the studio tonight, our computer was down, and I had things I had to accomplish.
Sure.
You know, some people might have an addiction, but I have my routine, and I have to have it done before the show. So it's very daunting to not be able to use the computer.
Right.
Very frustrating.
And that's why I would never say take a media blackout. A blackout is the absolute extreme where you have no media in your life. For example, the Amish, if they're 3 miles from 3 Mile Island and there's a nuclear meltdown, they better know about it. And so media can save lives.
That's a great point.
Yeah, media can save lives. Do you want to know if a hurricane's coming tomorrow or not? You know, and so I think there are a lot of great practical reasons that we should use media, and that we should even celebrate it and honor people who use it in humanitarian and in, you know, kind of sui generis breakthrough modes. They often make us wake up in certain ways. My concern is about people who wake up singing "I'm a Material Girl" or "I'm Katy Perry's Teenage Dream," and they're neither, and they don't know who they are under their programming.
But
who
you
are
just
we
said
under
the
our
word programming, and you know we're tape recorders. So when you get a movie that really inspires you, and I hope that some people aren't inspired by some of the more violent movies, Clockwork Orange or whatever. You know, Quentin Tarantino certainly, I don't think I've ever watched a Quentin Tarantino movie all the way through. I don't want that programming. I just don't want that kind of gore. I see enough of it just in the movies I like. Under Siege with, I really like Under Siege. There's 2 of them with Steven Seagal. And it's violent, violent, violent. But it's enough that you can know that it's not Quentin Tarantino over the top. But even that would be too much for an Amish person.
Yeah, well, absolutely. They stopped reading Time magazine while I was living with them because it seemed too commercial, too violent by their standards. And Time magazine is very tame by our standards. But I want to say that by the time a child is 18 years old in America, they've seen over 200,000 acts of violence. Isn't that too much for a person who very often can't separate out what they're actually seeing? Let's say they're 2, 3, 4 years old. That kind of constant consumption, we found out that it does spawn imitation in certain situations. We've also found that it can desensitize people in certain situations to other violence. So, and it's not just the exposure constantly to violence, but also advertising. By the time we die, we will have consumed 3 years of our lives of TV advertising alone, just television advertising.
Even though I flip it right away?
Well, you may be the exception, but I'm talking about the aggregate. If we do the research, crunch the numbers, the average American will have seen 3, and by the time our children die, 4 years just of television advertising. Where can you go without any kind of advertising?
I just don't like how they amp the volume, and I think Congress has a bill going through to get the volume down. It's insanity. Are
you talking about the beginning of movies where you're forced to watch or are you talking about TV?
On television, they're much louder, and in our household we just bring it right down. And Mark Fowler does the same thing, and I'm happy he does, because it's just, I don't want to be force-fed something. And I think the commercials are made to grate on you. Remember that Where's the Beef commercial?
I do, really well.
I think they pulled it because people enjoyed it too much. And they wanted ones that aggravate you more than ones that entertain you, because I think they found it sells more.
They look at the bottom line, and they do a correlation. So, and we remember things like that. Once it's etched in your subconscious, you tend to replay that particular commercial a lot.
I'm falling and I can't get up.